Okay, it's 12:01, and I see some people are still logging on, so we're just going to go ahead and get started with introductions, and hopefully everyone will be on board when the discussion begins. So welcome to today's webinar, Education in a COVID-19 World, Principals and Teachers Rising Up to the Challenge. My name is Matt DeGrush, and I am the Director of Alumni Engagement at USC Rossier. Before we begin, I'd like to review the process for submitting a question for our panelists. Please type your question in the Q&A box that can be accessed by clicking on the Q&A icon located at the bottom of your screen. We have reserved time towards the end of the webinar for your questions and hope to get to as many as possible. We also received a number of questions via the registration form and have tried to incorporate as many of them as possible into our structured Q&A. Lastly, please note a recording of this webinar will be available in the next few days. A link will be sent via email. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator for today's discussion. Dr. David Cast earned his EDD from USC Rossier in 2008 and currently serves as a professor of education at USC Rossier. And at this point, I'm going to turn the program over to you, Dave.
Well, thank you very much, Matt. It's great to be here again today. Very, very interesting times we're in. We just heard the May revise from Governor Newsom, and clearly changes will be made in K-12 education throughout the state of California. We're here today to discuss what teachers and site administrators are doing to keep the learning alive for students, teachers, and parents. We recognize that all of our students need our best efforts, and especially we're learning that our historically marginalized students will continue to need not just our best efforts, but efforts that we have probably never given to them in the past. Our discussion today will focus on what is working and what are some of the issues teachers and administrators have overcome to deliver on the promise of teaching and learning. I'd like to introduce our great panel that we have today. First, we have Ann Robinson. She's a second grade teacher at Chaparral Hills Elementary School in Moreno Valley. She's a member of the school site council and serves on Chaparral Hills school leadership and equity teams. Next, I'd like to introduce Charlene Shimada. Dr. Shimada has been in the Downey Unified School District for over 20 years, serving as the principal of Alameda Elementary School for the past 6 years. She is a lifelong Trojan, receiving her bachelor's degree in 1991 and her EDD in 2019. And she's someone who's always wanting to learn and share what she has learned. Next, I'd like to introduce Cindy Bach. Dr. Cindy Bach is currently the principal of Laguna Road Elementary School in the Fullerton School District. With over 15 years of experience in education, she has served in various capacities, including classroom teacher, teacher on special assignment, program specialist, assistant principal, and principal. And finally, I'd like to introduce Lon Harris. Dr. Harris has been teaching for more than 16 years and is now revolutionizing the world of virtual education. She currently serves as a bilingual virtual supervising teacher with Compass Charter Schools, a virtual curriculum specialist, and an English teacher with the Major League Baseball team, Colorado Rockies. And with that, I know we're going to learn a lot today. Let's get started. Our first question goes to Ann Robinson. Ann, what has your district done to support you as a classroom teacher in this new distance learning environment?
Well, first of all, Moreno Valley Unified has been very supportive of its teachers. They started with a plethora of trainings offered by our professional development department, and which was very helpful, providing us with new ways of doing things in this distance learning. So that was one with it that they were able to support us. They provided webinars, various new resources were given to us as well. And I think the most important thing is they have treated us with professionalism. They've given us the leeways and opportunities to use our professional judgment and to be creative, and knowing that we know our students. And I think that's very important, that we can provide the learning tools and resources and lesson plans to really get our students engaged And I think that's a big supportive way that any district can do it, but I think Moreno Valley did it very well. So I'm very proud to be part of our district.
Thank you, Ann. Dr. Shimada, as a site administrator, what has your district done to support classroom teachers in this new distance learning environment? You're muted.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Dr. Cash. Good afternoon, everyone. I think in Downey Unified, it started before the COVID quarantine. It started with what we were already practicing. So students were online using devices. We had amazing TOSAs, teacher on special assignments. We have instructional technology coaches that have been working with the teachers for years now. So when it was time to quarantine and start doing distance learning, it was just kind of a shift from what we were doing in the classroom to moving online. And so we were able to get devices out to every student in the first 2 weeks of the quarantine. Our district TOSAs, that first week we were out, they were already doing Zoom meetings, Zoom PDs, being able to help support teachers twice a day. When they did do their Zoom meetings, knowing that the teachers were Zooming with their students either in the morning or in the afternoon. And then providing a Google document for all of our elementary school teachers to use and as a resource for themselves and for their parents. So I think when I look at Downey, like Ann, I'm really proud of our district and what we've done, but a lot of it starts with what happened before we went into quarantine.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Dr. Shimada. We're going to stay with you for our next question. How has your role as a site administrator changed or been altered as a result of distance learning?
Well, you know, as an administrator, you wear many, many hats. And I've already have already been a cheerleader for our teachers and for our students. I think, again, we've shifted a little. So now I'm more of a cheerleader for the families too. I'm in constant communication with them through different avenues that we have available, but it's being the cheerleader for the family. So every day I get on our dojo and I make a video for the families and the kids to let them know that they're doing a great job. I'm here, we're here. And I go into the classrooms and make these videos so that they know just because you're not here physically with us, we're here together. And what I've heard from the parents was that really uplifts them and it uplifts the kids. My second job is becoming an arranger. I feel like I'm a marionette puppeteer because what can't be done online, I have to kind of do through my means so that I can continue to support the learning that's happening through Zoom. And so those are the two biggest kind of changes that have happened for me. But I think it's been really, really uplifting though, knowing that I can be that cheerleader and I can do these things to help support teachers and student learning.
Great, thank you very much. I'm visualizing you with as the cheerleader. You know, fight on. Well, that's what we might say. So, Ann, as a classroom teacher, other than the most obvious thing, like you don't have a classroom, a physical space that you go to every day, how has your role as a teacher been changed or altered?
Well, I believe in the classroom, you know, I was there supporting them physically, and obviously I'm not doing that on a daily basis. So since I am doing my Zoom meetings twice a week, I think I have to even get more in on those times that I'm with them and really reach out even more so as far as just checking in with them, like how are they doing? And you could see their little faces and their voices, and because I teach second grade, that they are craving that connection. So I think it's more so putting more of my personality into it and being that orchestrator and just trying to get in tune with their needs and seeing, you know, because you can still see their faces and their expressions, and you have to get a better feel for what's their sense of mood and what's going on in their life and how could you support them. And then, of course, reaching out with the parents. My communication was already in place with the parents before this happened. But I have to go about it maybe in a little bit different way, maybe a little gentler way to start with, to just, again, check in with them, make sure everything's fine. And then, explain to them that this is still important. We're still learning. So yes, again, being that cheerleader, that supportiveness that they really need. It's so unsure for so many people. And I feel that that's how my role has altered a bit too, but it's been enjoyable.
Great. Thank you, Ann, very much. Our next question is going to go to Dr. Harris. Dr. Harris, describe a significant barrier in distance learning and how you are overcoming that barrier.
Okay, so a significant barrier that I've seen over the course of teaching is a lack of diversity in leadership with the system of education as a whole. Sometimes we don't necessarily look like the students we are servicing when it comes to leadership, and I think this is a huge problem. Not only are we minimally selecting diverse leadership with regards to race and culture, but also the instructional resources and content that we choose. For example, bilingual resources. If more than 60% of our student populations come from Spanish-speaking homes, and then the resources we select or use most times are English only, then that makes us kind of ineffective in servicing that population of students. So I believe in operating from, let's say, a bilingual growth mindset where we select these resources that are most effective for servicing our diverse population of students. If we are to support the historically marginalized population of students, then I believe it's imperative that our leadership, our resources, and our subject content all share in diversity, especially when it comes to learning. Students need to see themselves not only in the content, but also in the leadership. And I think it will also help in understanding learning styles, data as it relates to race and culture. Also, statistics share that over 90% of learning is visual. So this is a real impact on student learning when they never see themselves in the virtual visual content or instruction. I believe in overcoming this barrier. We should be more assertive in hoping it's not misunderstood. We should select resources and content based on not only student and administrative feedback, but also student feedback of the lessons, and cultivating asynchronous environments, so to speak, that can include the parents, or, like workplace Facebook, building communities around that, so that they can access all content on all handheld devices, no matter where they are. And that's diversity in itself.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. The next question goes to Dr. Bach. As a site administrator, I would imagine student engagement's a big deal in this distant learning. So how are you engaging all your students? And then how are you supporting your staff, teachers and classified staff, in distance learning?
Yeah, that's a complex question, and student engagement, like you said, is very important. I'll start with student engagement and then talk more about how we supported our staff. But in Fullerton School District, our superintendent came up with a great branding for this solution to distance learning called FSD 360. And so with student engagement, we know that their basic needs need to be met first. So we wanted to make sure their nutritional needs were met. And so we do have a daily pickup of meals between 11 and 1 every day. We also wanted to make sure that we had a robust academic program. And this came in the through weekly distance learning plans using, like Yulonn said, both asynchronous and synchronous methods of teaching. So whether they were pre-recorded videos or Zoom meetings teaching live, that these were opportunities that were given to students, but also that their social emotional needs were met. So making sure that our counselor was continuing her services with students. As we move forward, if we saw and noticed students who were not participating or who were having other challenges at home, making sure that they got frequent check-ins. Above all, it was really trying to help our students see the silver lining in all of this. And it came with modeling that from leadership as well as from teacher leaders. We were thankful to have at least 2/3 of the school year for our teachers to build those positive relationships with students, to build a strong classroom community. It made the transition to virtual learning much smoother. And our goal was every student, every day. If a student did not respond to an email, did not respond on their Seesaw account or their Google Classroom account, did not turn in any work, then a phone call would be made. And as I would meet with teachers, if that student, if they were having a hard time connecting with that student, then I would call and be the secondary support. We also had our classified staff calling every single family every day. And so they didn't reach every family every day, but every day they were making calls just to see how are things going, what can we support you with. We have a one-to-one iPad program in K-6, so it really helped with the transition. But we also provided hard copies, and they were available in the meal pickup lane. We taught students how to create daily schedules to maintain that routine. Our Fullerton School District came up with weekly family challenges as well. Like, this week we want you to create something beautiful at home, take a picture of it and share it with us on social media. This week we want you to read a favorite book, take a picture, send it to us, things like that. We have a PBIS program at our school and we continue that as well. We do a Radical Roadrunner raffle every week, but now we do it digitally. So teachers will complete a form when they notice a student who's overcoming challenges or who is going above and beyond in their work. And then they'll be put into a raffle, and they can come to the meal pickup lane and pick up their prize if they're honored. And they're also given a shout out on social media. But part of that has been definitely supporting our staff too. So, once distance learning, once schools closed down, it was information overload. We were emails were flooding in, and it really took our staff to learn quickly. And it really meant that we needed to give ourselves a lot of grace and understanding, as it was a learning curve for many. And so I meet with staff 3 times a week. Monday staff meetings for teachers to celebrate successes, share creative ideas that different grade levels are doing. Wednesdays I meet with grade level teams to identify students that need additional check-ins or support. And then Fridays were just optional check-ins for all staff, just a place to gather. It's interesting because, we underestimate the power of just hello and goodbye in the mornings, right? And we weren't getting that. And so having a place where we can check in was very helpful. I created a teacher request form so that as teachers were learning and moving forward, they needed help making quizzes, hyperdocs, video lessons, moderating a Zoom meeting, having an authentic audience, because if we had a virtual presentation. And so our classified folks really stepped up to the plate, and they were flexible in what they provided. I had to model some risk taking as well, because recording lessons is new and uncomfortable. And so I had to record some video lessons and share with staff and say, look, I could do it. If I could do it, you could do it. And so, and just the last thing was just celebrating successes was so important. Just as we move forward, every staff meeting, we start with something positive. We start with sharing, okay, these were challenges, but what were the successes first? Let's talk about those, let's celebrate them, let's honor each other in that we're all on this journey together. And during Teacher Appreciation Week, we did one of those car parades, which is awesome. So just lifting spirits and validating the work that our staff is doing has been just a very important part about moving us forward through distance learning.
So thank you, boy. Sounds like some great, and I'm assuming it's your school that is the Roadrunners. I was, when you were saying that, I was wondering. I wonder when the last time we saw an actual Roadrunner in Fullerton was. So
yeah.
A lot of great stuff. I wondered if Dr. Shimada wanted to chime in response to that as well. How are you as a site administrator engaging and supporting your staff?
So like Dr. Bach said, making sure that the entire staff is involved. So at Alameda also, we have 2 staff meetings a week. We have a certificated and a classified. On our campus, we have the preschool program for special ed. So we have a lot of classified staff on our campus. And a lot of it is anxiousness. They don't know what's going to happen with them. And the unknown is really what is the fear the most, is the unknown. And so keeping them busy and having them be part of this whole journey together and not keeping them on the sidelines, like Dr. Bach said, has really brought us together. And so we've had our classified staff doing Zoom, making calls, making posters. And I think that community, that kind of, we're in this together, has really helped a lot. And I feel like the parents have felt it, and I know that the students feel it because they enjoy that. Hearing from who we call the pink ladies, the yard supervisors, who call once a week to check on them. And then, like Dr. Bach said, our PTA has been amazing, doing all kinds of different challenges. This week was origami. And you know, the kids, they rise to the occasion, right? It's what we put out there for the expectation, that they rise to that expectation. And our students have. And like Dr. Bach in Fullerton, if a student isn't online, we have all kinds of people calling. And we do still have our psychologists and our therapists involved. We still have our specialists from our district who are in charge of students with McKinney-Vento or foster youth, who still are being very involved with their students. And so I think it's this whole thing about bringing everyone together and all of us working for the good and all of us having a purpose and a reason. It just moves us all forward. Thank you, Dr. Cash.
Boy, thank you. Be great to be a student or a parent in those two schools. Ann Robinson, you're going to take our next question. As a classroom teacher, what are you doing to keep parents informed and to continue to support them?
Well, before this all happened, I had my class dojo and Remind already in place. So I had really good communication with my parents. Those that weren't connected, I made sure I got them connected by making personal phone calls home to them and really reaching out to those parents. And so I have everybody in a communication device, like I said, Class Dojo or Remind. I also make personal phone calls home, and I send out daily messages, reminders of work that's needed to be done or things like that. I use my Google Classroom also as a platform to inform parents of the assignments and our Zoom meetings that's happening so that they know that's also available to them. And then what I did in the beginning, because all this new technology is really unfamiliar to them, all our students were given Chromebooks by the district. In fact, all our TK through 12th graders have Chromebooks now, which is really nice. So since they do have that technology, I wanted to make sure that parents were familiar as well. So I held a virtual class. I did a Zoom class for parents and offered that for them so that they could know what's going on, how to go through Google Classroom, where to find Clever and all the different links that they needed to maneuver, because that was, you know, obviously quite challenging for them. And I don't think they realized that their students could actually do that, because all of a sudden the students forgot what they knew how to do. And so I had to remind them through their parents. And so holding that parent informational meeting, I thought was really very good. I think that parents appreciated that. I've gotten a lot of feedback, positive feedback from the parents. And I think the key to anything to be successful is communication. I think if we communicate, like you said, you reach out, you make those personal connections and phone calls, and I think that helps. And also during my Zoom classes, a lot of parents are just within earshot or they're sitting right next to their child. And so I always open it up either before and or after class for parents to chime in and ask questions. And so I have less parents asking questions now because I think they're more comfortable and they're familiar, but they sit right there and they ask away. So again, communication and informing the parents that way, that's what I've been doing for them.
Wow. Boy, be fun to be a second grader in your class. So Dr. Bach, and you know, you talked a little bit about this, and we're now in a world where, you know, homes have become the physical classrooms of distance learning. And so a lot of parents are having to realize what a great job teachers have been doing for their children and how difficult it is to be a classroom teacher. So what are you doing as a site administrator to support parents to be the new teachers of their children?
Well, I loved Anne's idea about the parent trainings, the parent Zoom meetings. That's great. But I'm with you. Consistent communication has been essential to meeting the challenges of distance learning and keeping our community just connected. And so prior to distance learning, I sent a weekly Sunday message. My parents are familiar with that format, so we just continued with that. It's a recording and an email with weekly updates such as PTA meetings, virtual spirit weeks, things like that. We also realized that just as the administrators and the teachers were getting information overload, so were parents. They were getting so many emails. They were responding not because they didn't get the email, but because they were getting hundreds. And so, and they had to work, a lot of them had to work from home too. So managing that was difficult. So what our school did was we created a distance learning website using Google Sites, one-stop shop for all parents to help with the communications, to streamline all the communication. And so our parents could go to one place to access all of their weekly distance learning plans, plans that were created by our reading and math intervention coach, our language acquisition teacher. And then also moving forward, we really wanted to hear that feedback, because without our students present, and I think Yulonn, you mentioned the feedback piece, is we needed more information. Is this working for you or not? And we had questions that we wanted to ask our parents. And so we invited them to complete a distance learning feedback form. And we asked questions like, how much time are students spending every day? Are the instructions clear? What's the level of engagement and the level of difficulty? And the most important questions that I got the most valuable feedback for us to drive our distance learning plan was, what is going well? And what do you need additional support with? And I shared that feedback with staff weekly. We were able to celebrate the successes of things we were doing well, and then together work collaboratively to think, okay, what can we do differently or better to support our students and our parents? Because like you said, Dr. Cash, our parents became their one-on-one tutors and aides and teachers. And so with that, we had to really redesign how we supported them. The other thing that I did was I started a daily newsletter from the principal. So that's something that I hadn't done in the past, but I realized, like I said earlier, that daily connection was missing. And so just a daily message from the principal, uplifting our students, sharing upcoming events. I had different staff members submit video recordings of them reading aloud. And so we called them Roadrunner read alouds. And I can't even tell you the talent that came from our staff, both classified and certificated. I had a classified aide say, I'm really good at drawing. I could do art lessons for you to put in your newsletter. My office clerk and my office manager are amazing singers and are really good at iMovie editing. And so we started creating parodies. I became a Disney princess and I sang Jasmine's part in A Whole New World of distance learning. And he just did one called In Quarantine to the tune of Under the Sea from Little Mermaid. So anything that we can to uplift spirits, but also like that daily connection, those greetings, those happy moments that we really took advantage of when we were not at school, or when we were at school. Now we have to create ways that we can connect in those ways. So we got lots of great feedback from that. I'm still hoping to get on Ellen. So if you have contact, just let her know that I've got a couple of videos that are waiting to be viewed by her.
Wow, we'll make sure that that connection happens. That's fantastic. A lot of great support for parents. Dr. Harris, you've been working in the virtual teaching and learning environment for many years. So with your expertise, if you could identify what are the 2 or 3 things that teachers who are brand new to this environment should know?
Yeah, so, and we know now parents are some new teachers too. So I just want to give some general ideas. I think one of the top is being Google Level 1 certified. As an educator or as a parent, you can take this online and it will equip you with the online platforms, the resources for all types of learners via technology. So even if you're a parent, you can go on and you can do this training at your own pace. Become Google level 1 certified. At the minimum, they have level 2, level 3, but at the minimum, I would suggest that. Number 2, I would curate a number of resources and networks that reflect the population you are servicing, as well as making room for the parents. So be connected to the SPED teacher, or have content readily available for ELLs. Become knowledgeable of content that has more than one culture or background. Select apps and resources where the language can be multilingual in the output. For example, to help remain universal. For example, use resources like IRAD. IRAD is a tutorial type of step-by-step app and web online where you can use it. You can create tutorials, and then they have every language on there. You can change it when it plays back to whatever language. So have those kind of outputs. Number 3, I think being able to create resources as well that are collaborative in learning, that can be easily tweaked later. So for example, Google Forms for assessments, which allows you to add images, videos, links, audio in a way that's universal and personalized for the learner's context. For example, when I'm teaching my Colorado Rocky baseball players, they're Spanish speakers, so I have to teach them English. But what I do is create Google Form assessments that not only give you immediate scoring, but it has images of the players. Everything is personalized to the Rockies. Whatever, if it's the English writing prompt, it's their picture. I can drop in their images from one of their previous nice games, and them seeing themselves in the content, it makes the buy-in so much easier. So I think that is very important. Just having those resources and being able to work from a standpoint of collaborating as an educator, as a parent, even as a student, and let the students be a part of it as well. They have so many platforms now that they use socially. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, but they also have social reading platforms like Perusal that allows you to upload content and articles as a teacher, and then you can allow the students to give comments, emojis, talk about the text right there on that social platform in Perusal. So it's a lot of ways to keep the content fun and active and engaging and motivating because they see themselves in the content. So that's my story.
Wow, thank you. That's some great advice for all of us, and especially those of us that are new to the distance learning environment. We're now going to do a quick round robin and ask all our panelists the same question. So tell us something that is great that's happening in your school that surprised you, you're surprised about, but it's going to make teaching and learning even better for students as you move forward. So we're going to start with Ann Robinson. Ann.
Well, I think what was surprising is that all the students received Chromebooks. I was really surprised by that, especially when they were giving them to TK. So I think that's going to make a tremendous amount of difference as we move forward in distance learning, so that everyone is prepared and they do have access now, and they are able to be familiar. So it's not something that's going to be a new. And I think that was helpful to our students, our parents, and also to the teachers, so that everybody was on an equal field. And so I think that was surprising to me. That was something that I really was not expecting at all. Something that we were able to do. So again, that's what I think I found the most surprising, and the adaptability that everybody has shown.
Great, thank you. Dr. Shimada.
I'm going to have to agree with Ann. I'm not surprised that we all got devices, that all our students got devices. I am pleasantly surprised, though, that our preschoolers got devices. Wow. So we're talking about our preschoolers who are in special ed preschool, and our preschoolers have some kind of language or speech need. And so when you're talking about students at home without anything, to be able to have this device that they could practice their language and speech skills with their teachers, with assistants, with a therapist, this was a huge thing for us, that they had this in their hands. And so like Ann said, we go from preschool to high school to our adult transition in Downey. And I think that has also helped the parents. So parents who are using whatever platform they're using with their students and in their classroom, Seesaw, Google Classroom, Flipgrid, the parents, like Dr. Bach said, parents are sitting with their kids during the learning most of the time. They're also learning the platform. And so then they have something to use also. So having these devices in the hands of all students helps them, one, to be self-efficacious so they can be independent learners. You know, as we were transitioning through Common Core, we were looking more at teachers as facilitators and coaches for learning. And now with distance learning, we've been forced to do that now, right? We are no longer the sage on the stage anymore. We really do have to push for this independence. And I think this is a positive thing that has come out of it, that students are able to use their voice. And, you know, by having an iPad and not being restricted by a pen and paper, the level of the depth of complexity of what I see some of our little ones doing, all our kids can share what they really know, but not be prescribed by this. When they're able to video what they've learned about Pete the cat and be able to summarize that story, a TKer with every bit of it and their own little interjections, they would have never been able to do with a pen and paper. But these devices, like Ann said, has given them just this amazing ability to just learn and then express themselves. And so I agree with Ann. It's having these devices in their hand, and I can see where Dr. Harris is just on fire with virtual learning. So that's where we are in Downey.
Wow, that's fantastic again. I'm going to ask Dr. Harris to go next. So Dr. Harris, tell us something that's great that's happening in your school that surprised you and you know is going to change and make learning better for kids as we move forward.
Well, being in the virtual world already, I'm in a virtual K-12. So the biggest change I've seen is the influx in students moving from the traditional setting, enrolling into our virtual setting. So we've had probably a couple hundred increase, and I'm sure it's going to even increase more this fall. But that in itself has been the biggest change I've seen. The things that I can say our teachers, our virtual teachers are connecting with the traditional teachers outside, and we're kind of trying to pull together more of a community in that aspect, because some of the things we use in our day-to-day, this is our normalcy. So we know that there has to be some kind of collaboration connection between the two, because where our traditional brick and mortar teachers are struggling a bit maybe with the virtual online, Google Classroom, all the social platforms we use for instruction, we have to now as virtual teachers reach out, connect with them, make sure, and that is a plus. You know, I think that all the way around makes us well-rounded as an educational arena, period. And then bringing in our parents to come alongside them and also give them videos and give them support as well. I mean, technology really affords us the opportunity to be able to do this in a way that's not really as strenuous as it is at the brick and mortar. I mean, we can really connect in a forum where parents can connect using their phone after work, or, you know, connect online. So I think for the most part, just being able to connect with families, connect with virtual and traditional teachers to collaborate, that overall has been really a great success for the whole field of education.
Wow, it's great to hear that experts like yourself are going to take the time to collaborate with the old school dogs that have done mostly or only brick and mortar work. So that just is good for kids and good for California moving forward. That's what Trojans do. Dr. Bach, so you'll be our last one on our stock question. So you tell us what you've been surprised by and what do you think is going to be really great moving forward?
Yeah, well, I agree with all the panelists. I mean, the technology that has come in, like Dr. Shimada said, it has really increased the creativity, not only in students, but staff and parents too, and the skill sets that have been built through the technology or the use of it, the regular use of the technology. But something that I've seen too is the increase in pedagogical knowledge. So teaching virtually is so different. And Dr. Harris, I'm so glad you're sharing some of those ahas with us, because it is a different world. And so just being able to understand, okay, how do I engage my students now in this different platform, I think really has leveled up our teachers' skill sets in delivering an instruction, in providing feedback when you're not person to person, when you're not right there with the student. It's also really created this growth mindset. You know, we talk about it all the time, but this has forced us to have a growth mindset, to be adaptable, to be solution oriented. We have no other choice. And lastly, I think it's really built our community and made us stronger together. We are such a team. My favorite memory throughout distance learning has been a parent drove through the meal lane and asked me to come and talk to her child for drive-through discipline. So, you know, they say that, I know, they say the triangle, the parent, teacher, and student, right? And it has forced us to merge together. And the parent said, I'm done, I need you. And so I went and through my mask, I was like, look into my eyes. Do you see my disappointed eyes? And so I had to do a little bit of restorative practice with the parent and student as well. And they came by at the end of the week and she said, thank you so much. This has been a much better week. But hey, we have to be flexible and share those skill sets. We're learning together. And like I said, I think we've been able to build on each other's strengths and skill sets to come together as a community and support one another.
Wow, those are all great surprises, great answers. Really, I've learned a lot. I'm sure our participants have as well. We're going to take some time now to have you address some of the questions that our participants are asking. Matt.
Yeah, so I've had the opportunity to listen in and also keep an eye on the Q&A box. There's been a lot of great questions, and I think some of them have been addressed through some of the comments that have been made. And also there's a lot of great sharing actually going on in the Q&A box with attendees sort of sharing their own thoughts. So I really like that. So I've picked a few questions out that I think will help everyone get a better understanding of what's going on. I think one sort of quick question is, what are you doing for students who did not have Wi-Fi at home when all this started?
So I'll kind of direct it around the block if you're okay with that, Matt. We'll start since we're going to hope that in Dr. Harris's school, every student had Wi-Fi since it's a virtual school. We'll start with Ann Robinson. So what did you guys do in Moreno Valley?
Well, I know that Spectrum was connecting people that didn't have internet. So I made sure that I gave the link to my parents, and if they were having any difficulties, I got everybody on. So that was one thing that we did is provide the information so that they can receive internet.
How about in Downey, Dr. Shimada?
So in Downey, our district has bought hotspots. So we did hook on to Spectrum, but for the families that still couldn't get Wi-Fi, the district has different hotspots available for parents to come pick up. And so as a matter of fact, I just sent one of my kids over today. She had been on all this time and the mom's frantic because today it all went out and they don't know what happened. So off to the district they went to get a hotspot.
Great, thank you. And how about in Fullerton, Dr. Bach?
Yeah, we did the same thing. We started off with a lot of promoting of Spectrum and free internet options. Our district did a great job in providing online support as well. They had on-campus support twice a week, as well as by phone and by email, but we also purchased hotspots as well. And so we were able to give that to students and sometimes even teachers who didn't have strong internet connections at home to make sure that they were able to maintain a 30-minute Zoom to teach their lessons.
Great. Matt?
Great. There were a number of questions that kind of revolved around the theme of keeping track of students and their engagement in sort of online education and in your classes. Can maybe the panelists talk a little bit about how maybe you're assessing that and strategies you may have for students that may not be as engaged as they should be?
Okay, great. Who would like to tackle that first?
I will. Here at Alameda and Downey, we do have teachers who work on calling students who are not engaged. We have our classified staff who do that also, and I'm on the phone also. So there's many of us on the phone. We have our therapists, our psychologists, like I said, our district specialists, working students and working with parents. You know, and I think Dr. Bach had used the right word. She was talking about her staff, giving them grace. When we work with them, we need to make sure we're giving them grace, but we also need to be firm about what they're missing. So, you know, there's this relationship that you have with them, and then providing the resources, because a lot of them just don't have the resources to do it. And so that's what we've been doing.
Great, thank you. How about Ann Robinson and Moreno Valley are in your great second grade classroom. How are you engaging the disengaged?
Well, I make sure I use my teacher voice, connecting with them. And then I realize it's not the parents I really need to make those connections with as much when they're not engaged, but the students themselves. So I make sure that I have an earnest conversation with them. And just making sure that they're okay, first of all, you know, have that understanding, and just reaching out to their sense of learning, and then trying to find engaging activities for them. And I think I've got most of them on board doing that too. But I think that's the biggest thing, is you have to make the connection with the student. And if you didn't have it to begin with, then that's more difficult. But yeah, I had great communication with the students, and I think they know from what place I come from, and where my heart is and my love for them. And I think that shows up, and it does help them. And I try to provide fun, like we do cooking and we do art and 3D drawing, and something that they can say, oh, I'm going to show up to class, or I want to do this. And like Dr. Harris had said before, showing that diversity to show that they're part of it, and they're included. And so that's what I try to do in my classroom.
Great, thank you. Either Dr. Bach or Dr. Harris, do you want to respond to that question?
Sure, I'll respond. I love that, the earnest conversations. As we've been making phone calls too, though, and connecting with the students, it's interesting because you have to find the barrier that they're facing. Like, what is it? Is it a subject area? Is it that they can't get up in the morning? Have they created a daily schedule? Maybe it's that they need a daily checkoff list. So trying to find out through those earnest conversations, what is the barrier, and let me help you overcome that together. And like Ann said, just that engagement is key. One of my 5th grade teachers, she started a segment called Cooking with Cat. She's getting like 90% participation, cooking with her students and doing real life application through the math concepts in measurement and geometry. And so those kinds of examples are great ways to engage. The other thing that we started doing about halfway into distance learning is we started tracking participation rates. And so our teachers would report at the end of the week how many students are participating all the time, sometimes, and never. And so those never students were those calls and check-ins. And then I would share that information in my newsletter and Sunday messages and say, shout out to 5th and 6th grade, 97% participation this week. And so anything we can do to just boost it up a little bit more.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Dr. Harris.
Sure, I was going to add, same thing, Dr. Bach, just using the things that we have, the resources, connecting and engaging with students with GIFs, emoji, just getting on their level to connect with them initially, I think is key. Even if you're doing, you don't have a student that's engaged, you can, send them the silly GIFs, connect with them through emojis, or just making it a fun environment in which they actually connect and feel a part of it, and using their own platforms, allowing them to do a self-directed video. Maybe it's on TikTok, maybe it's on Snapchat. I mean, I think that their resources that they use, we can make them or use them for education as well, and just connecting with them in that way, keeping them engaged on not just, you know, getting the point across. Yes, this is education. Yes, we're learning, but also it can be fun. And I think for the most part, that's where I've had a huge success in learning their platforms, or allowing them to actually teach me the platforms that they're using and how we can embed those platforms into our lesson for today. So especially in the virtual world, it gives us a lot of autonomy to be able to pull in those different social apps, YouTube for education, Google for education. So it gives us a lot of platforms to use voice threading. And then also when we connect with students to keep them engaged, when I am giving feedback, whether it's scoring or grading, I don't just do the written comments. I have a student bank of voice comments, or I record silly videos and I say, hey, this needs to be on time. Or, you know, just GIFs where I'm just, you know, I've created so different things where it's not just the regular written comment or the regular phone call, but something that draws on their attention like immediately. So that way they are more engaged and focused right away. And then they'll respond 90% of the time, they respond.
Wow, fantastic. Great ideas. All right, Matt, I think we have time for one last question.
Okay, I think the question that has stood out too as well, I think revolves around social skills. So we talked a lot about sort of the education side of the formal classroom, but obviously, you know, students being in a school environment develop social skills, have the opportunity to socialize. And now that we're sort of all in isolation, what are you doing in your classrooms and in your schools to sort of encourage that socialization or the development of your students' social skills?
All right, who would like to start us off with that one?
I can start us off.
Thank
Yeah, social skills has been probably on our feedback form one of the most commonly talked about items. It's been challenging. We've really had to do a lot of digital citizenship too, to teach our students what's appropriate online, and how messages are perceived differently when written in email versus a text or whatnot. And so making sure that students have opportunities to connect that's not necessarily academically related, just casual conversations, like our teachers have done scavenger hunts, sharing of favorite movies, favorite read-alouds, things like that, that are more social in nature, and then teaching them the frames for which to speak about these things appropriately, using gestures or whatnot, even though we're in a virtual forum. And then as an audience, teaching them how to listen virtually too. I happened to pop into a 6th grade presentation, and you know, one of the camera kept moving, you know, I was like, I'm getting dizzy. So I'm in a private chat, like, please make sure your camera is facing you and that it's stable. And so things like that are things that we've had to teach.
Great, thank you. How about you, Dr. Harris?
I would say similar to what Dr. Bach said, using the digital platforms that are fun and at the same time, and that is more my personality, especially with teaching and learning, is to allow students the space, the virtual space we have now, to be free, to be who they are, and socially as well as learning, whether they're teaching, like I said, how to make enchiladas on TikTok and making it humorous. I mean, allowing them to engage in a way that's fun for them, but at the same time, they're teaching us how to make enchiladas. So they have the music going, they have the animations. I mean, we created Powtoons with voiceovers. So it's so much we can do. They created a novella teaching Spanish. So, I mean, it's just so many things you can do and allow them to teach us. It really enforce self-directed learning for the students from their perspective, not me dictating how it should be done, but allowing them to come up with what they want to present. So.
Fantastic. How about in your classroom, Ann?
In my classroom, we've been trying Flipgrid. And so that's given the students an opportunity to show their personality. And we did a virtual field trips along to the national parks. And they got to present their favorite national park in that way of being a reporter and going on to Flipgrid and reporting that way. So I think that was a good way for them to show their different side. And before we left the classroom and they would do their stories, they got to sit in their special reporter author chair and report out their story and share. And I think a lot of them missed that. So that was the way that they got to connect and show themselves. So I think that's been enjoyable.
Great, thank you. Dr. Shimada.
I think what I love about our teachers, and I think Ann started us off, is that they're teachers and they know their students and they're kids. We're teaching little people. And so when the teacher is on live with the students, then they give them the time to be silly, to be kids, to talk to each other, to show them, oh, this is my little brother, this is my little sister, this is my dog, you know. And I think the other thing about having this virtual learning tool is that we have become more familiar with each other. You know, where at school, you could tell us you had a dog, but you may not have a dog, right? But at home, you can share so much more. We see so much more about who you are and what your life is like at home and who your family is. And the teachers let the kids share that. And so this social part of it, I think, has grown, again, more intense, more familiar with each other, knowing each other a little bit more. And then, like Cindy said, that we also have to manage that, though. Teachers and the admin have to manage this way that we're socializing. And then when we talk about being social, we're also talking about how to self-regulate ourselves. So, you know, Cindy talking about having her drive-through discipline there. But, you know, we all in the classroom, they had calming corners. They had ways to help them self-regulate where they don't have this at home. So part of that was talking about that to the parents on Dojo and reminding the kids when I was in a classroom, remember, you have a calming corner. You know, find someplace in your house that is calming for all of you so that you can help self-regulate yourself, because that starts with us first. And then as soon as we can regulate ourselves, then we can be social with other people. And so we just want to continue that work that we do here and continue to remind the students. And now the parents are saying, oh yes, we see what that looks like, what maybe mindfulness looks like, what maybe stopping and doing a body scan, a 2-minute, 3-minute body scan and quieting yourself down helps. And so it's just a continuation of what we do here, in addition to knowing each other a little bit more intimate because we're sitting in each other's homes.
Wow. I really want to thank, that's the end of our webinar. I really want to thank our panelists. Boy, we were very lucky today to learn from 4 outstanding Trojans, great women educators in our community and our state, your kids, your colleagues, your superintendents, who I know should be very proud of the work that you do. I learned a lot today. Those of you that are here along with us today that haven't had an opportunity to be part of the Trojan family, we really encourage you to look into our both our master's in teaching and our doctoral programs. And then I would ask everybody to look out in the month of July, because Matt is going to put together a month of leadership webinars. And we're going to bring back our panel that we had over a month ago, Wes Smith, Paul Goffold, and Jay Westover, to talk about the upcoming school year. But I want to conclude again by saying thank you to our 4 Trojans here tonight. Great job. Fight on. Matt, it's on to you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for moderating it. I'd like to express my thanks to our panelists and to you for moderating. A lot of valuable insight, but I also think a lot of encouragement. I hope a lot of people are walking away feeling a little bit better about this situation and challenges that they're faced. You guys have given a lot of great insight, advice, and things people can take away. As I mentioned earlier, there'll be a recording of today's webinar, and I'll send that out probably by tomorrow. And then when you close out of today's webinar, there will be a short survey, and just ask you to take a few moments to provide feedback on today's webinar and also share some ideas you may have for other future virtual programs. As Dr. Cash mentioned, we will be doing a leadership month in July that is going to be taking the place of our normal in-person leadership conference that we host. And one of the sessions that we will be doing also will be a sort of follow-up to this session that's talking about lessons learned and preparing for the fall, specifically in the K-12 arena. So be on the lookout for that. That schedule should be available by mid-June. And at this point, again, thank you to our panelists, our moderator. Thank you to everyone who attended. I hope you all have a great day and fight on.